The courtroom was tense, thick with anticipation as though the very air held its breath. Journalists leaned forward in their seats, pens hovering just above their notepads, cameras rolling to capture every flicker of expression from the nation's most powerful figures. At the front, Justice Samuel Alito sat with the kind of posture that spoke of long years on the bench, his fingers interlaced, his chin tilted slightly upward. He seemed to be waiting, almost daring, for a confrontation. When Representative Jasmine Crockett rose to deliver her statement, that moment arrived. She spoke with conviction, her words firm, clear, resonant. The issue at hand was one that carried the weight of the Constitution, the balance of democracy, and the trust of millions of Americans. Crockett's voice carried all of that weight and more. Yet, as she pressed forward with her arguments, Alito's lips twitched. Then it came, the smirk. Arrogant, dismissive, loaded with condescension. It wasn't subtle either, it was deliberate, as though he wanted her to see it. The gallery noticed. Reporters noticed. Everyone noticed. For a heartbeat, Crockett paused, the silence stretching long enough for the smirk to linger in the air like smoke from a match. But she was not the kind of woman to allow herself to be diminished by a gesture meant to reduce her to irrelevance. She took in a slow breath, steadied herself, and then she locked eyes with Alito. "You may smirk, Justice Alito," she began, her voice low but carrying through every corner of the chamber, "but this is no game." The tone struck like lightning, slicing through the room. Gasps rose, and even the clicking of reporters' keyboards stilled for a moment. Crockett continued, her words sharper with every sentence. "That expression may work in whispered conversations, in circles where accountability is treated as optional. But here, in this courtroom, that smirk represents something dangerous, disdain for the very people whose voices I am here to carry." Alito's smirk faltered. It was barely perceptible, but it was there. His posture stiffened slightly, his chin drawing down as though he had not expected such a direct confrontation. Crockett's momentum grew, her words fueled not by anger but by conviction. "You sit in that chair because the people allowed it. You wear those robes because of a promise you swore to keep. The Constitution is not your weapon. It is not your shield. It is not a tool for personal bias or political agendas. It is a living promise to every American citizen, black, white, rich, poor, powerful, or powerless. And I'll be damned if I let anyone, no matter how high they sit, treat that promise like it's negotiable." The room crackled with energy. Some in the gallery exchanged stunned glances, others leaned back as if the sheer force of her words demanded physical space. Reporters scribbled furiously now, knowing this was history in the making. Alito tried to hold his composure, but the smirk had betrayed him. Crockett pressed harder, her words relentless, her tone unwavering. "We are not pawns in your ideological chess match. We are citizens of a nation that demands justice, fairness, and accountability. To look at me, at the people I represent, with that smirk is to dismiss them, to dismiss their struggles, their sacrifices, their hope in the system you vowed to uphold." Her gaze did not waver, even as Alito shifted in his seat. The audience could sense the shift in power. What had begun as a subtle act of dismissal had exploded into a reckoning. Crockett was no longer just speaking for herself, she was speaking for millions who had too often been silenced, ignored, or reduced to caricatures by those with unchecked authority. "History will not remember your smirk," she declared, her voice rising, "but it will remember what followed. It will remember that in this chamber, arrogance met resistance, and silence met truth." The silence after her words was deafening. It stretched across the room like a tide, pressing against every wall. No one moved, no one coughed, no one whispered. Even the court clerks who had busied themselves with papers moments before were frozen, their eyes locked on the confrontation. Finally, Crockett lowered her voice, but not her resolve. "You may dismiss me with a smirk, Justice Alito. But I promise you this. The people I speak for, the people you serve, will not be dismissed. Not now, not ever." The gallery erupted, not with noise, but with a restless, electric energy that pulsed through the room. The smirk that had been meant to silence her had instead ignited something far greater. Alito's expression had hardened now, the smugness replaced with something unreadable, almost defensive. He shifted slightly, as though the seat that had once felt like a throne was suddenly less comfortable. Jasmine Crockett sat back down, her chin high, her eyes still blazing with the fire of her words. The courtroom was forever changed. What had begun as a smirk had transformed into a reckoning, and no one in that room would forget it. The political storm ignited in the courtroom with Jasmine Crockett was still reverberating through the media when the nation turned its eyes to another explosive moment, this one playing out live on television. The set was sleek, polished, and buzzing with anticipation. Donald Trump had been scheduled for the spotlight, expecting the usual fanfare and friendly space to deliver his talking points. But the producers had orchestrated a surprise. Barack Obama would share the stage, ensuring the discussion wasn't one-sided. Trump had walked in confident, shoulders squared, chin high, ready to dominate. He was accustomed to bending the spotlight to his will. But when Obama appeared, the crowd erupted into applause that Trump had neither expected nor welcomed. He plastered on a grin, but his eyes betrayed him. They flicked quickly to Obama, narrowed, and then darted away. The moderator introduced the segment with practiced neutrality, giving both men an opening to speak on the state of the nation, democracy, and leadership. Trump dove in immediately, railing about election fraud, the media conspiring against him, and how he alone was the voice of real Americans. His words tumbled out fast, forceful, and rehearsed. He was building his familiar narrative, one that had always drawn cheers from his base. But then Obama spoke, and the room shifted. He didn't shout, he didn't gesture wildly, he spoke with calm precision, his voice low and steady, the kind of tone that demanded attention without asking for it. Leadership, Obama began, his eyes sweeping across the audience, is not about how loudly you can shout your grievances. It's about taking responsibility. It's about showing people, not just telling them, that you're willing to carry the weight of the office with humility and integrity. The audience broke into applause, but Obama held up his hand gently, urging them to let him continue. His voice sharpened slightly, not in anger but in authority. You can try to rewrite history. You can spread misinformation, but the truth has a way of breaking through, no matter how many walls of noise are built around it. Trump's jaw clenched. The camera caught his hands gripping the armrests of his chair, his knuckles whitening. He leaned forward abruptly, his voice raised. That's a lie. You're the worst president in history. You left this country weak. Nobody believes you anymore, Barack. Nobody. His words came fast, fueled by fury, spittle at the corners of his mouth. The studio seemed to hold its breath. But Obama didn't flinch. He looked at Trump with an almost amused calm, as though he'd seen this outburst before and knew exactly how to respond. His smile was faint but deliberate, the kind of smile that disarmed rather than antagonized. The difference between us, Donald, Obama said, his tone smooth, is that I don't need to shout to be heard. The record of my service speaks for itself. Health care for millions, steady economic growth, restoring dignity to the Oval Office. That's what I left behind. And the record of your service. He paused, letting the silence sharpen the blade. Well, the chaos, the corruption, the division, that speaks louder than anything I could ever say. The crowd exploded into applause, cheers ricocheting across the studio. The moderator attempted to interject, but the audience's reaction drowned out every word. Trump's face went crimson, his lips trembling as he tried to summon a rebuttal. He opened his mouth, but nothing coherent came out, just fragments of anger. Fake news. Rigged. He stammered, but the momentum had slipped away. Obama leaned back slightly, his composure unshaken. He didn't need to add more. The silence he left hanging was more damning than any additional critique. The contrast was undeniable. One man calm, collected, measured, the other unraveling in real time under the weight of his own fury. Social media exploded almost instantly. Clips of Obama's takedown spread like wildfire, the hashtags piling up, hashtag Obama exposes Trump, hashtag Trump meltdown, hashtag leadership matters. Memes flooded timelines, contrasting Trump's red-faced outburst with Obama's cool expression. Within hours, news outlets had already branded it the moment that defined the night. For Trump, the fallout was immediate and brutal. Commentators who had once hedged their words were now openly calling the exchange disastrous. We saw two versions of leadership on that stage tonight, one analyst declared, and only one of them resembled a president. But for Obama, it was something else entirely. His words weren't just a rebuke, they were a reminder. A reminder of what measured leadership looked like. A reminder that arrogance and bluster were no substitute for truth. Much like Jasmine Crockett in the courtroom, Obama had shown that composure, conviction, and truth-telling could shake even the most powerful figures when arrogance had become their shield. The studio may have been the setting, but the impact spread far beyond those walls. Across living rooms, offices, and phones in every corner of America, people replayed the exchange, some laughing at Trump's outburst, others marveling at Obama's calm. It wasn't just a clash of two men, it was a collision of two legacies, broadcast live for the world to witness. And as the headlines screamed the next morning, Obama exposes Trump on live TV. Trump explodes in rage. It was clear that the ripple effect of that night would linger. Like Crockett's words in the courtroom, Obama's rebuttal had cut through the noise. Together, their moments carried a shared truth. Arrogance might smirk, it might shout, it might explode, but the calm power of truth will always echo louder.